Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of Sports Hub. I'm Jackson Jirik. Alongside me for the show are Alex, Strouf, and Michael Wengrzyn. Guys, what did you think of the snowflakes this weekend?
Well, it wasn't a very pretty sight. Hopefully that's not a sight that we'll see a lot of this winter because my business professor says we're supposed to get a really bad winter, but again, we're not talking about winter. Keep the fall mentality. Like I said last week, keep the fall mentality.
Well, we gotta keep the fall mentality. We can try. It's 39 degrees out right now. I'm gonna go freeze in Lambeau Field in a couple hours, but we'll make it work. Yeah, you and I were both driving in the snow on Sunday, and I didn't lose control. I was hydroplaning a little bit, but
that's fun.
It was super fun on a Sunday morning. But we're surviving. It didn't stick. It's still multiple colors outside, which is good. It's still spooky season. It's not quite snowy season yet.
Well, I'm glad both of you guys are still here today on the show.
Hey, thanks, Jackson.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. On today's episode of The Hub, we'll talk about Pointers football, the Wisconsin Badgers' sixth consecutive win, preview tonight's Monday Night Football game for the Packers, and talk about the League Championship Series and the MLB playoffs. The UWS football team fell to UW-Oshkosh 20-7 on Saturday at Titan Field in Oshkosh. The two teams were held scoreless in the first quarter before the Titans opened up the second quarter with a 43-yard touchdown pass for a 7-0 lead. Oshkosh continued the scoring with a field goal 3 minutes later, followed by a pick off of Pointers quarterback Matt Ermansky. With 5 minutes left in the half, the Pointers would not score until midway through the third quarter with a 2-yard touchdown run by Samaje Williams, but that was not enough to repair the damage. Ermansky threw for 251 yards, but also threw for 2 interceptions. Guys, what do you think the Pointers have to work on this week?
Well, obviously, it was getting points on the board. Only 7 points after a nice showing against UW River Falls the week prior. Offensively, it was a letdown ultimately, and you've got a tough one this week, as we'll get to in a second here against UW Whitewater for homecoming. You want to get a win on homecoming every year, or you want to get a win every week, but you want to get a homecoming win each and every year, and you've got a tough challenge ahead of you, and your offense didn't look like they were up to the challenge the week prior. So it's going to be a tough week of practice, and we'll catch up with Greg Breitbach, a couple of us this week, obviously heading into the homecoming game on Saturday. We'll see where their heads are at. I mean, obviously it's a disappointing showing when you come off a big conference win the week prior. You go to a team that you beat last year. Greg Breitbach was 1-0 against UW-Oshkosh, and they were a ranked opponent last year. And you hope to just stay 1-0 every week like every coach does in this sport. And ultimately, they weren't able to do that. Only 7 points is what I keep looking at. You got to work on getting more points on the board, but I'll let you kind of look at that as well.
Yeah, it was funny too because I actually tuned into the live stream just to kind of see how the Pointers were doing, catch up on the score and all that stuff. And literally the first play that I tuned to was the pick 6 interception by UW-Oshkosh off Matt Ermansky, and it was then 17-0 with like about 5 minutes left in the first half, and I'm thinking, oh man, what a change of direction this Pointers team overall has gone. Obviously, the week before they looked stellar on offense against UW River Falls, as you mentioned, Alex. But this past weekend against Oshkosh, I don't think they really ever showed up. To be honest, I think they hit like a mental rest stop.
Offensively, or all overall?
I think overall, like Ermansky did have a solid game. Obviously, he threw 2 interceptions, one that went for pick 6, but he threw for over 250 yards, which isn't that bad of a day on the offense. But the rushing game overall didn't look as good as it did the week before. Samaje Williams did have a touchdown run, but again, it was only from 2 yards out, and he wasn't anywhere near the level he was last week. So I think offensively they weren't very good, but defensively they only held Oshkosh at 20 points. You would have expected them to maybe kind of give up some more points based on how bad the offense lacked in the production.
Yeah, that's where I was going to head next. I mean, 20 points only allowing, that's less than they allowed River Falls, if I'm not mistaken. I think they gave up 24 against River Falls. So that's a step.
I think they gave up 16 against River Falls.
You're right. It was 30-16. Still, same ballpark, pretty much number. I mean, that's less than a touchdown. So 20, 16 points 2 weeks in a row, 36 over 2 weeks. I'm not going to complain about that from a defensive standpoint, especially when you're only allowing 20 from UWO, 7 of which came from the defense. So 13 points the defense allowed. I'm not going to complain about that too much, obviously, if I'm a Pointers fan. Looking at what they've been able to do defensively, that's kind of been where they've been stellar all year long. It's just been offensively, it's been an absolute freaking roller coaster. You never know what you're going to get. Obviously, UW River Falls, UW Oshkosh, totally different teams. I mean, this is a totally different matchup. So we're kind of comparing apples to oranges in that sense. But nonetheless, UW Oshkosh, UW Whitewater, now we're talking the same ballpark where these are prominent franchises, prominent schools in the football game. And we'll see what they're able to do against Whitewater this week. But only allowing 20 against Oshkosh, not too shabby, I'd say.
I agree.
96 passing yards.
Yeah,
Very
that's
defense.
a
That's a
good mark.
great game.
That's a good mark.
Yeah, and you mentioned this too, Alex. On the schedule when conference play started out, obviously they got that win over UW River Falls to start off conference play 1-0. But then as you look through the rest of the schedule, they just played Oshkosh, which they lost by 13 points. Now you got obviously the toughest team in the conference now coming up, but it's in your own backyard, which helps a little bit. I mean,
It helped them
Whitewater
last year against Oshkosh.
It did help them
It's a
last
different
year.
It's a
I
different
mean, but Whitewater, I believe, is ranked like number 3 in the
Number
country.
three.
Number 3 right now in the country in Division III football. So obviously, Whitewater is going to have the manpower to go out and play really, really well each week. But these two tough contests back to back are going to be a real challenge for this Pointers team, and especially when they have to go play teams such as UW Platteville and even UW Eau Claire as well later on in the season. It's going to be an interesting challenge right here and see if they have the mental capability and physical capability to survive these 2 weeks and get through the rest of the conference.
Yeah, when you bring that up, one more note on my end is you never know what you're going to get with this Pointers team. At least it's seemed like that's the trend over the last, 5-10 years, where you don't know what you're going to get. Is this a team that's at the middle of the pack? Are they bottom of the conference? Can they maybe shock some people, go top 3, top 4 in the conference? And it seems like this is the epitome of one of those teams, right? When you look at this Pointers team, you see what they did to River Falls. Can they beat a team like Eau Claire, who had a really big win earlier in the year? Can they beat a team like UW Stout, who hung right in there with UW Oshkosh until the last minute just 2 weeks back? So you don't know if this is going to be a 2-win team in conference or maybe a 5-win team or 4 or 5-win team in conference. You don't know what you're going to get, and I think these 2 weeks are very big telling signs as we go on through the remainder of the season.
The Pointers are 2-3 overall and 1-1 in conference play. Like mentioned, this weekend they will host UW Whitewater in their homecoming game. SPTV will broadcast the game as Alex and I will cover it on the UWSP
go us.
Athletics page. Kickoff is scheduled for 1 p.m. Moving on, the Wisconsin Badgers shut out Michigan State Spartans 38-0 in their homecoming game on Saturday at Camp Randall. The Badgers held the Spartans to only 149 yards of total offense, and their 4th shutout of the season. Quarterback Jack Cohn had a terrific day, completing 18 of 21 passes, passing for 180 yards and a touchdown, while Jonathan Taylor had 2 touchdowns as he rushed for only 80 yards on the day. Guys, did the Badgers win this game or did the Spartans quit?
I like that question. Both. Probably, right? Wisconsin definitely won that game, and we'll get to what they've done this year overall. But the Spartans, they're tapping out, I think. I think they're giving up. I mean, Michigan State is a program that is expected to win multiple games, be a ranked team, be in a prominent bowl game. If not, they should be making their way to the Big Ten championship game. That's not at all how these last couple seasons have gone for them. And we know how good the Badgers are at this point. We've seen what they've done consistently week in and week out. And 3 teams from Michigan they played. Central Michigan, Michigan, and Michigan State. They're outscoring them, I believe. This is off the top of the noggin, but 134-14. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
That's a 120-point spread against 3 teams. If
good.
you put up 120 points against 3 teams, I don't care if you lose all 3. If you're putting up 120 points, holy smokes, is that a good line, right? But you're outscoring 3 teams, 2 of which really should be ranked opponents in Michigan State and Michigan, by 120 points. That's outrageous. This team is ranked 6th. They'll make their way up there. They should be in the top 4 by the end of the year. And obviously, they've got some big ones coming up. But nonetheless, this Badgers team is electric. That defense may be the best in the nation. I said this last week. I'll repeat that. This defense might be the best in the nation. It's the best I've ever seen out of a Wisconsin defense. This offense might be the best I've seen in a long time. When you look at a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who's a front runner for this Heisman trophy, you look at Jack Cohn, the Badgers finally have a competent quarterback, and we didn't realize how important that was until now you're looking at what they're going and saying, yeah, this team can win the Natty. Like, this team can do it. I fully believe if they can beat Ohio State on the 26th on the road, nobody's stopping this team. I think they should be in that national championship game come January, whatever it is, 10th.
Well, with this now sixth win on the season, sixth in a row now, the Badgers are bowl eligible now for the 18th season in a row. So, yeah, obviously now like they can look forward to playing a bowl game in December. Obviously, they'll want a big one, maybe even a spot in the college
They want to be in that
playoff.
CFP, no doubt about it.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that, Alex. But, it was interesting because I was reading an article, too, about this on foxsportswisconsin.com about how Spartans head coach Mark D'Antonio was talking about that the Spartans didn't quit, but they never really showed up either. And I think that's kind of an interesting point to make because, I mean, when you watch the game, like I was watching it up in Wausau this weekend with one of our former SBTV sports producers, Ben Zatuni. We were kind of talking about this as well. They never really showed up. Like the fact that they only had 150 yards on total offense, they just never showed up. They honestly, like, probably, I think, got to the stadium, and then I think their game plan wasn't set for this Wisconsin team. I think everybody kind of expected Michigan State to put up at least the same amount of points that Michigan put up, but they didn't even put up anything. They flat out didn't show up, and the fact that the Badgers steamrolled over another Michigan team, especially in the Big Ten, where Michigan State isn't necessarily a top team in the Big Ten East.
Not anymore, no.
No, but at the same time, you got to kind of say, okay, this team is probably for real. And again, as you mentioned, if they can go to Ohio State, which is now scheduled for an 11 o'clock kickoff on Fox on October 26th, if they have the opportunity to go out there and beat a team like Ohio State, I think this is going to eventually be a settling point for the Badgers.
They have to be a bowl team if they win that game. A college football playoff team, if they win that game. There's no doubt in my mind. And I was there on Saturday, and you're right. I mean, obviously, I was not fully on the field most of the time because I looked at the scoreboard. They were winning. I was participating in the average Camp Randall camaraderie. But every time I looked at the field, it seemed like the Badgers were on offense or Michigan State was going 3 and out. And it was just every single possession, and it was really an outrageous, and I mean this in a good sense, it was an outrageous performance by the Badgers yet again. And this team has blown my socks off all season long.
Yeah, and I think we're really in for some good stuff. Obviously, this weekend they got a road game, for the first time since their season even started. So, like having 5 straight home games to start off the season, that really helps too, especially in getting those victories early on in the season.
Well, the Badgers improved to 6-0 and have moved up into the sixth in the AP polls. They'll head down to Illinois to play the Fighting Illini for their first road game since their season opener on August 30th.
Been a while, hasn't it?
It's been a hot minute. After our first commercial break, we'll preview the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions game and look at what happened in the NFL this weekend. We'll be right back.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well. But it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that. And it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
Welcome back to the Sports Hub. The Green Bay Packers host the Detroit Lions tonight on Monday Night Football. This will be the third divisional matchup for the Packers this season in their first 6 games. Their first matchup of the season against the Lions. The Packers currently lead the NFC North at 4-1, while the Lions are only 2-0-1 in the third in the division. Boys, what are the key points for tonight's game and how the Packers can pull off a win?
It's a divisional game. So you know it's going to be tough. It'll more than likely be close. I don't expect a blowout by any means. The key is just to, and I say this, I sound like a broken record when we talk about the Packers, right? You know it's about to come out of my mouth. They need to play a full game. That's me being a broken record. No, they do. I mean, when you look at Green Bay, they come out hot first, second quarter, maybe okay in the third quarter like they did last week, but then fourth quarter it's just flat showing, and that's both offensively and defensively. I think this is a really, really good shot to show what they're made of against the divisional opponent, and the Lions have been impressive this year thus far. So, I mean, defensively, just hold the run game like they did similarly like what they did against Dallas. They can allow Stafford to get a little comfortable, not too comfortable for the Lions offense, and the offense needs to roll. I mean, for Green Bay, that is. We saw what Aaron Jones was capable of against Dallas. We know Aaron Rodgers is having yet again a pretty, I mean, this is, I'm going to say underwhelming, but that's not even the right word, season for Rodgers. He doesn't need to be what we needed Aaron Rodgers to be over the past decade, right? He doesn't need to be Superman, and he's been playing that role perfectly fine, and the Packers are winning games. They're 4-1, looking to become 5-1 tonight. So hopefully I'm their good luck charm, and hopefully they can get a Monday Night Football win.
Knock on wood right there, Alex. But, yeah, that's a great point that you bring up. Aaron Rodgers doesn't necessarily have to bail out of Green Bay as much anymore because the Packers are actually playing pretty consistent on both sides of the ball. Obviously, they need to start out really well, and of course they need to stay consistent throughout the entire game. Obviously the offense has a great first half each week, but then in the second half they kind of mellow out a little bit. So the consistency is a big key to winning games. Obviously, you know, the defense will also step up big. You know, I'm a little concerned about Schmitt. He's been kind of going down the past few games, and you know, I'm not really sure if he's 100%.
That was one of my tweets last week. 3 times in the Dallas game he had to get helped off.
Yeah, and there was a couple times against Philadelphia, I think, where he went down as well. So I'm a little concerned about him. If he's healthy and he's good
Hopefully
to go.
it's just cramps or something,
Yeah,
right?
if he's good to go for tonight, I think we're going to see some stellar performance from him tonight on defense, and hopefully we'll come out with a victory for the Packers.
Looking at the rest of the NFL this weekend, some interesting storylines took place on Sunday. The Houston Texans got a huge road win over the Kansas City Chiefs, while the San Francisco 49ers improved to 5-0 in the NFC West. The Atlanta Falcons dropped to 1-5 with a loss against the Arizona Cardinals, and the New York Jets pulled off a huge upset over the Dallas Cowboys. Guys, biggest surprises this week, what are they?
Yeah, I'll lead off because I think you nailed a couple of them. Every year I do preseason picks, right? Who are my 6 playoff teams? And I'm going to just hit on some of them. San Francisco, I had them taking 3rd in the NFC West. They look like probably the favorite. The Rams look horrible. We didn't mention that. The Rams look really bad. They've dropped, their last 3 now, coming off of the Super Bowl appearance a year ago. That's the 49ers and the Seahawks battling out in that division. As of now, of course, the Rams can always come back. Atlanta, I had them as my 6th seed in the NFC. Wow.
I don't think that's
Wow. Are they horrible this year? They lost to the freaking Cardinals. I mean, come on. What's wrong with them? Dan Quinn's on the hot seat and the hottest of hot seats. The New York Jets, I had them as the 6th seed in the AFC. Don't think that's going to happen thanks to Sam Darnold missing the first couple of weeks of the season. But this is what I knew they were capable of. And on the flip side of that, they beat Dallas, who I thought was capable of more. So I didn't have them as a playoff team, Dallas. I did not. But I knew they were a little bit overhyped. But that surprised me. The Jets over the Cowboys surprised me. So we'll see how that plays out. This has been a year of parity in the NFL, which I always really enjoy. We talked about that last year as well a lot, Mike, where the parity has returned in the NFL, right? It's not always the same teams unless we're talking about New England. And Kansas City lost this weekend to Houston, 2 teams that we know are good in the AFC. We don't know how good. So it was a fun weekend of football.
It was a really good weekend of football. You know, we should mention this too, that the Chiefs have lost now 2 consecutive home games as well. They lost to the Colts last weekend, and then, of course, they lost to the Texans yesterday. In 2 critical home games as well. Now they're 4-2 on the season. And if you want to talk about coaches on the hot seat as well, you know, Dan Quinn, the Falcons are 1-5 right now in the season. The last time they were 1-5 was 2007. You know who was their head coach that year? Bobby Petrino.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so
that's a throwback.
An ugly throwback. Fortunately, you know, Dan Quinn, I think, has to be in the hot seat with.
He's got to be.
With, you know, all the talent he has on offense, but just the lack of defense that the Falcons have.
Let me throw one out quick. Who's on the hotter seat, Jason Garrett or Dan Quinn?
Dan Quinn.
I gotta say Dan Quinn, but Jason Garrett, you know, if the Cowboys have another disappointing season, I think this should finally be the year that Jerry Jones says enough is enough with Jason Garrett and send him off packing.
Players wouldn't even high-five Jason Garrett after that loss.
I don't think he
yesterday.
has the locker room anymore.
Yeah, I think
at
he's
all.
lost it. So that's why I think
he
he might be hotter, but I agree. Dan Quinn, Atlanta's expectations have to be higher than 1-5. They've been the biggest disappointment in my eyes this year.
I agree.
I agree with that as well. We'll take one more commercial break, where we'll be back to talk about the League Championship Series and the NFL and the MLB playoffs. This is Sports Hub on SPTV.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school. It's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
Back here on the Sports Hub, we're talking about some more playoff baseball. In the NL, both the St. Louis Cardinals and Washington Nationals came back from 2-1 deficits to advance to the NLCS. The Nationals currently have a 2-0 series lead over the Cardinals with Game 3 tonight, as the series now heads to the DC. In the AL, the Yankees completed their series sweep in the ALDS, and the Houston Astros held off a series comeback and set up a Yankees-Astros ALCS matchup. The series is currently tied at 1-1 as the Astros now go to the Bronx to face the Yankees, as the Astros got a huge win last night with the Carlos Correa walk-off bomb.
Yeah.
Boys, talk about it. Let's see. ALCS first, NLCS second.
Yeah, ALCS first. 11 innings. Carlos Correa, bye. He does the jump shot as he gets to home plate with his helmet. Talking about swagger, I mean, that guy's been a playoff hero for Houston for the last several years, dating all the way back to the World Series 2 years ago. But this series is fun. I mean, I think it's more fun than the other one. Houston and New York, this is one we've kind of been anticipating for a couple months. And here we are, 1-1. It goes back to the Bronx, as you mentioned. It's a fun series, and to see what happened last night, Carlos Correa with that swaggy jack to end it in 11, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of the game last night, obviously, when I was also trying to get some homework done. But, always got to take some time.
Priorities.
Got to take some time to watch a little bit of playoff baseball. And, man, that was a heck of a game. That's the kind of series that I want to see in MLB playoffs. A series where both teams have a pretty even split. The Yankees look very, very good. Obviously, they swept Jackson. You are my Twins. But obviously, they're the better team from that series. And now they're going up against a tough Astros team where – you mentioned Carlos Correa, but talk about their pitching. Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander, man. And you also want to throw in Zach Greinke as well as there, too.
They've got some arms for sure.
They got some arms for sure. And arms will get you far in the postseason if you also got a great lineup at the plate. So I think the Astros have a really great shot at making this series theirs. Obviously, the Yankees are not going to back off that easy. They're not going to take this loss very easily. I can't imagine Aaron Boone and the rest of the Yankees lineup as well handling the loss.
Yeah, so the Savages bring it back home, tied 1-1. I imagine this is a 6 or 7 game series at least, or not at least. Obviously, the most it can be is 7. But
I hope
there's
it
at
goes
least
7
a 6.
games.
I think it'll go 7.
I think there's at least 6 because these are two really good baseball teams. These are now the favorites to win the World Series. Now that the Dodgers on the NL side are out of it. These have to be the two favorites. Who comes out of the series is my pick to win the World Series. And I don't see it going any other way. I look at the Astros, what they did last night, they never gave up. And the Yankees, we know how good the Yankees are. I don't even need to waste any time on it. I mean, these teams they're called the Savages for a reason. That's the time I'll waste on it. These two teams are definitely good enough to end up hosting the trophy at the end of the series or at the end of October. It's definitely the more intriguing series, but the other one's fun as well.
Well, switch over to the NLCS then.
Yeah.
Nationals, their pitching staff, first 2 games, unreal. Max Scherzer, Anibal Sanchez, both took no-hitters deep into the game. Talk about that.
Well, I was watching. Yeah, Game 2 took place on Saturday as well. We were switching between that and the Badger game. Of course, the NLCS was more exciting to watch because the Badgers were just completely blowing out Michigan State. But I'm not really entirely sold on the Nationals like that. Because St. Louis is a good team. Obviously, they're not as strong of a team this year as they have been in years past. But they'll have a chance to make it competitive, even though like the series is now going to Washington D.C. and they lost 2 critical games at home as well. So it's going to be a challenge, I think, for St. Louis. But, they don't really play a lot of the small ball baseball that we've seen them in years past. So it's kind of a different approach, I think, for the Cardinals this year in how their team goes as a whole.
Yeah, Mike, you say you're not completely sold on Washington. I'll tell you what I am sold on. That this series will be done by Wednesday at the latest. You've got 3 in Washington, as you mentioned. They need to win 2 of them, and it's over. I think this series goes 5 max. Washington has been rolling since that Game 5 win over the Dodgers, where they ended up hitting a grand slam at what was that, the 10th inning to win 7-3 in Game 5.
Howie Kendrick.
Yeah,
I can imagine that's a huge confidence booster too.
Right. I mean, you walk off a series in that fashion, advance to the NLCS, and now you go up 2-0 with 2 road wins. I mean, I'm absolutely sold on this Washington team. They'll be representing the NL in the World Series unless something catastrophic happens and St. Louis all of a sudden says, whoa, let's go win 3 road games, right? So I'm totally sold on Washington. I don't know how well they can compete with a team like Houston or New York, but if they get the series done early, and what happens with Houston, New York is what we said would happen, that goes 6 or 7 games, you have some time to rest then. And then anything's possible, right? Because you've got the arms that you mentioned, Anibal Sanchez, Max Scherzer. You've got the arms. You've got the batting power. Through 2 games, they've only allowed a run from St. Louis, and obviously they had the 2 best arms on the mound. This series is less intriguing, but I think it brings up an interesting matchup when you look forward to the World Series if Washington can end up closing this out here in the next couple of days.
I think it can happen. I believe if the Nationals win it in 5 and the Astros and Yankees go to Game 7, that I think the Nationals have a very good shot at winning the World Series. And I would love to see them, the underdog story, win the wild card game that they shouldn't have won against your guys' Brewers or against his Brewers, but go us. And I think
We're all on the couch. It's fine.
All our teams are out of the playoffs.
But I think that the Nationals are the favorite or I shouldn't say the favorite, I think they stand a better chance if the Yankees and Astros go 7 and they go only 5. Well, folks, that's all the time we got for today's show. I'd like to thank Alex and Michael for joining me on the show. And a big thank you to our technical staff and all their work and help that they make to make this show possible. Be sure to check out our Facebook page at SPTV-UWSP Television. Follow us on Instagram at SPTV_UWSP. You can also follow us on Twitter at SPTVUW Sports. Don't forget to tune in.
Don't forget.
Don't interrupt me.
I'm sorry. I don't want them to forget.
I'm trying to finish the show off here. And
Let's
you're
finish the show.
interrupting me.
Let's finish the show.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you on next week's episode of the Sports Hub.
Peace.
Oh, I missed.